What's happening, everybody? Welcome to the channel. There's plenty of videos for you to check out. Hit the subscribe button, hit the notification button. Everybody else, I appreciate you. As always, welcome back. Why Sing Sing Correctional Facility, Sing Sing Prison, in my opinion, is one of the worst places to serve prison time. I'll tell you why guys hate it. I'll tell you why some guys like it. I've done a few videos on Sing Sing before, but this is a little different. I started my prison sentence in Sing Sing. That was the first maximum security prison that they sent me to. Sing Sing is in Ossining, New York. The town used to be called Sing Sing, but they changed their name to Ossining because they didn't want to be confused with the prison. It's an Indian name, an old ancient Indian name. Sing Sing is the second oldest prison in the state of New York. It was built in 1828, which is one of the reasons that it is a horrible prison because of how old it is. So I will explain to you the construction of the prison as well, meaning how deplorable the conditions are for men to live in. The prison cells itself, I'll get right into the facility. The prison holds about 1,700 prisoners, and there's two main blocks in the prison, which is A block and B block. There is also another area called 5 building, right? A block is what they use for long-term prisoners, what's called GC, general confinement, the prisoners that are scheduled or deemed to stay in Sing Sing for a longer period of time. And B block is what's considered a transit block, which is where they put prisoners that they're usually going to send out after a year or two after they figure out their classification or get them to complete certain programs. And then you have 5 building, which is probably the cleanest prison, the cleanest part of the prison, and where you have to be a not troubled inmate. You have to be a quote unquote good prisoner, really, to be housed in 5 building. They have a lot of the workers, the prison workers, housed in 5 building. As I said, it's the second oldest prison in the state of New York. The first one was Auburn Prison, Auburn Correctional Facility. And they actually took the prisoners from Auburn Correctional Facility and brought them up the river to build Sing Sing, which rumor has it is where the saying being sent up the river came from. Sing Sing is right on the Hudson River. It is directly on the river, as you see from the picture that I'll post for you. When it is a windy day and it is a cold day and the cold and the wind comes off of that river into the prison, it is absolutely freezing. Because the buildings were built in 1828, the construction is very old. Okay, the prison blocks, the cell blocks, are absolutely freezing in the wintertime. The heating system is very old. They have heating pipes that run throughout the prison. It runs on steam, and you hear the steam popping in the pipes all night. Bam, bam, bam. It is very, very nerve wracking to hear the heat, which hardly works. Half of the windows are broken in the prison. It gets very, very cold. I have been in the prison when it got so cold that several men died inside of their cell on a very cold winter. In the summertime, it is a hot box. Obviously, there's no air conditioning in the prison. And in summertime, it is an oven inside. An oven. I had to sleep in the summertime with a bucket of water next to my bed with a washcloth in it. And I would have to reach the washcloth in and just keep myself soaked all night while I was laying down. The prison itself is infested with roaches, infested with mice, infested with cats running around the facility. It is a very, very dirty building. If you go into what is called the catwalks behind the cell, where all the plumbing is, there's water dripping, there's puddles of water, there's cracked pipes. I mean, the place is just falling apart. It's built in 1828. I'm surprised that the men don't come out of there, and myself didn't come out of there with diseases, because it is that filthy. I honestly believe they keep Sing Sing open for historical reasons, because the place should be condemned. Okay. The facility itself, when you go inside of the prison, it is considered one of the largest freestanding cell blocks in the United States of America. And what that means is, when you have a row of cells, it's like 67 cells long. It's 4 stories high, and it's just a 4 rows of cells inside of a building, and then there's cells on the other side. You know, Everything echoes in Sing Sing, and the men scream all night long, and everything is an echo. If you drop something, it will echo throughout the whole prison. There is no peace and quiet in Sing Sing. It is extreme. When I moved into my cell in Sing Sing, I'll give you a quick little story. They were moving me into a different cell. They were transferring me from one cell to another, and I had a locker. They give you a foot locker, and what you do is you smoke out the locker. If there's any roaches in there, you want to get them out. So I took a small piece of tissue paper, lit it on fire, and just threw it in the foot locker, so the smoke would make the roaches run out. And thousands, not hundreds, thousands of roaches came flying out of the locker. So I took the locker and I got it out of my cell before they locked the door. And when the officer was doing one of his rounds, he saw the locker on the company, and he said, "Whose locker is this?" I said, "It's mine. It's filled with roaches. I don't want it." He says, "I'm giving you a direct order to bring it back in your cell." So I picked up the locker and threw it at him. I was young. I was crazy. In any other prison, they might beat you to death for doing that. But this brings me to the way that Sing Sing runs. We'll get to the way that Sing Sing runs in a minute. As you know, the electric chair was in Sing Sing. 614 people were put in the electric chair that they nicknamed Old Sparky. My grandfather was one of those that was put into the electric chair in Sing Sing prison. My father's father was put into the electric chair in Sing Sing prison. And so it was very, we could use the word ironic, that it was the first prison they put me in. My case was a pretty high profile case. So I tend to believe that they put me in Sing Sing on purpose, the same prison that my grandfather had been electrocuted in. The electric chair is no longer in Sing Sing. It is in a museum. The last person put in the electric chair was in 1963 in Sing Sing prison. That was the last time they used it. I actually stood in the exact same spot that my grandfather was put to death. I was able to get into the room where the electric chair was. It was no longer there, and I stood in the exact same spot where my grandfather died. It was a very eerie feeling. Um, I was left there alone as well. I was able to one of the officers brought me there. A lieutenant brought me there when he knew my story, and he allowed me to go into the room. And even though the chair was gone, you could still see where the chair was bolted to the floor. You could see the witness box. You could see the electrical equipment that was attached to the wall. The building has since been transformed into the one of the prison's vocational buildings, which sits right on the river itself. So that was a very eerie feeling for me. Many famous prisoners were in Sing Sing. There were many famous prisoners there. A man named Albert Fish was there. The son of Sam was there. David Berkowitz was there. Bank robber Willie Sutton was there. The list of famous people that were in Sing Sing are too much to name. Too much to name. Sing Sing also had one of the most successful amount of escapes from Sing Sing prison. I know there's a number listed as 50 successful escapes from Sing Sing prison, but I believe that was even in a short period of time. There were more. There were more escapes than that. Let me tell you why people like Sing Sing, and some prisoners preferred to be in Sing Sing, and why others would never want to be there. You see, Sing Sing is run by staff, by correctional officers, and I have to tell you that most of them are really incompetent. most of them are pretty ignorant as well. Um, Sing Sing is only 45 minutes from the five boroughs in New York City: Brooklyn, the Bronx, Queens, Harlem, Staten Island. And so a large number of the correctional officers are right out of the projects. And I'm not saying that people out of the projects are ignorant. I'm saying that these individuals that get this job and come out of the projects, when someone is talking in Sing Sing, you don't know if it's a prisoner or an officer. You have the officers wearing their pants off their ass like they're straight out of the projects. I see officers walking down the hallway smoking weed and talking to the prisoners like it's their homeboy. You know what I mean? And so the prisoners that like to do time in Sing Sing are prisoners that see, there's no control in Sing Sing. The prisoners basically run the show in Sing Sing. They do whatever they want with very little repercussions. The officers don't have a lot of control because they don't know how to control anything. They don't care about control. A lot of drugs are brought in by the officers in Sing Sing. A lot of weapons are brought in by the officers in Sing Sing. A lot of just contraband in general is brought in by the officers in Sing Sing. There was a nickname. The cover of the New York newspaper a few decades ago said "Swing Swing" because the female officers were selling their bodies to the prisoners. There was a huge prostitution ring in Sing Sing. I'm sure you Google that, it'll pop up: prostitution in Sing Sing. So the place is really out of control. So prisoners who don't want to do their time like men and don't really care about doing safer time, they like Sing Sing. The gangbangers like Sing Sing because you could run around smoking weed, getting into trouble. You could scream all night out of your cell till 3, 4 in the morning. The officers aren't going to do anything, but the prison is filthy because the officers don't even care. They don't make anyone do their job. The prison's filthy. It echoes. It's dirty. There's roaches. There's rats. There's cats. The prisoners are just really running around doing whatever they want to do. It's noisy, really noisy. It echoes, right? But prisoners like to be there because they can do whatever they want. There's no real structure in the facility in itself, and that makes for a hard place to do time. For a guy that's got to do 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, or a guy that's got to do 25 to life, you don't want to do it in Sing Sing. The benefit of being in Sing Sing is that it's only 40 minutes from New York City. So it's easy to get visits from your family. You see what I mean? So that's a big thing. You know what I mean? But to me, it wasn't even worth it. My family will come see me upstate. You know what I mean? Sing Sing is just disgusting. What a deplorable, nasty, dirty, filthy, cold, hard place. And the prison, like I said, is falling apart. It's really, really nasty and dirty. And the people that run it just don't have control. But as I said, if I had to list the good things about Sing Sing, it's just the fact that it's close to New York City. You know what I mean? And you can get your visits there. Otherwise, the place is really nasty, and you wouldn't want to do time there. It's a maximum security prison. As I said, it holds about 1,700 prisoners, but the place is dirty and filthy. Excuse me. When I left Sing Sing, I went from complete polar opposites. I went from Sing Sing to Attica. And Attica is the complete opposite. Attica is run like a military. The officers have a lot of control in Attica. And for me, that was a better place to do time because I had a lot of time to do. I was serving up to 25 years. So I don't want to be in a place where kids are running around crazy, going nuts, causing trouble, loud. Attica is like spotless. You know what I mean? It's clean. The officers maintain much more control there. It's much more serious to do time. Attica is a serious place. You could get killed there real quick. Killed there by a prisoner, killed there by an officer. They don't play around up there. So I went from one of the loosest prisons, Sing Sing, to one of the strictest prisons, Attica. But if you're going to serve a lot of time, I'd rather be up in Attica than up in Sing Sing. You know what I mean? Sing Sing, the cells are very small. They're much smaller than in other prisons because when they built it in 1828, they weren't thinking about creating space for the men. These cells were like boxes, and the walls are metal, and the paint is peeling off the walls, the paint is peeling off the floors, the toilets are old and leaking, the sinks are leaking. Just a nasty, nasty place. There's a big, like 40-foot high wall around Sing Sing. The guard towers surround the place, and as I said, it's on the river. I watched a man get killed my first night in the recreational yard in Sing Sing. A man got killed standing very close to me. He got stabbed with a shank, a very long shank, 16, 18 inches long. The guy slammed it right in the center of his back, and it came out of his chest. And it happened about 5 feet away from me when I was on the telephone, making my first phone call home to let them know where I was. I saw a guy get murdered in Sing Sing. Officers were very corrupt. I told you the story, I believe, about the officer that killed the kittens in Sing Sing. He was fired, a sergeant. He threw the kittens into the incinerator. Um, I watched the officers walking around getting high. I mean, it's just not a good place. So I figured I'd fill you in a little bit on Sing Sing and give you an idea of what that place is like, how it's fallen apart, how dirty and nasty it is, how there's no control inside of the place. And if you hear this, mark my words, you hear a lot in the news, right, about prisoners being beaten, about prisoners being beaten to death. Even it's all on. If you watch YouTube videos, if you Google it, if you listen to the news, right, but you don't really hear that happening in Sing Sing as much about officers beating prisoners to death because the officers don't give a crap about what anyone does in there. So imagine how wild it is. You're not safe in Sing Sing. If you're a prisoner and you're going in there, you better really mind your P's and Q's, and you better carry yourself the right way because one of the prisoners will get you in a heartbeat. They don't care because there might not even be serious repercussions because the officers, they don't care about doing proper investigations. They don't care about protecting anyone in there. You're on your own when you're in Sing Sing. Swing, swing. It's a crazy place, man. A crazy place. So that's a little video on Sing Sing Prison. If any of you have any questions, you could just. I spent about 2 years there. That's how long I was in Sing Sing. About 2 years. Then I got kicked out of there. Yeah, I got kicked out and shipped up to Attica. So that's how I left that place. But that's a little bit of story about Sing Sing. 354 Hunter Street, Ossining, New York. You guys take care. Be well. Talk to you soon. Any questions, let me know in the comments. Peace.